Thank you, Ian, and a very warm welcome to all of you to Harwell. It's fantastic to have this great network here today, and particularly to be focused on downstream applications, because a lot of the story of Harwell is about the downstream applications. I mean, Ian's alluded to the fact that we've got this fantastic 40 billion target for the UK. But if you look at the last time they did a survey of the size and health of the UK space industry, a sector that was going in a great direction, about 13.7 billion pounds of revenue, but 12 of that was downstream applications. So in terms of seeing where the job opportunities, the growth is, a lot of it is downstream applications. Obviously, from a teaching perspective, that, as Ian's alluded to, has a big implication in terms of teaching and trying to make sure the skills that are entering the workforce are the right shape. So it's a real pleasure to have you here, and I hope that it's a really interesting day that can start to shape some of the agendas and the curricula that can hopefully help us to bring the graduates, bring the talent toward the space sector. It's really going to help us achieve these targets. So I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First of all, to let you know a little bit about the Catapult, because we're definitely very much aligned to this agenda and to working with you, and then a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing from a downstream perspective. So as a Catapult, we are a technology and innovation centre. We're supported by government. We're not for profit, and our whole remit is to help the growth of the space sector. A couple of important points. We're one of a network, and in terms of downstream applications, there's lots of other relevant catapults. So everything from transport systems to future cities and digital. These are all catapults, organisations that, again, would be willing to help you in the agenda that you've set today. So typically catapults are about things like facilities, expertise, capabilities that can help businesses to grow. And we are very much focused on space and satellite applications. So again, our story is very much about the downstream. When catapults were created around 2013, actually, initially there was a space catapult was proposed, and that didn't land particularly well with government. But as soon as it was turned into satellite applications and the users, the benefits that can be derived for each of us and for the way society works, that landed extremely well, and has seen us now created here at Harwell. Now we're 5 years old. But a large part of the rationale for catapults was about, we're a translational infrastructure. We're about translating the fantastic stuff that goes on in universities, the good ideas, the great research, into commercial ideas, into business, helping existing businesses to grow or new businesses to be stimulated. So this sort of engagement is precisely one that we're very, very, very keen to support. And as we look at the targets that the space sector set itself, the growth in jobs is profound. So we're talking 10, 20, 30,000 new jobs in the space sector, and they're going to need to be the right shape. And we work closely with people like Kathy on the skills agenda, and I think together with the people you've managed to assemble here today, and I think we can have a really good conversation about how things might evolve. So really, the essence of why we got set up is because it's such an exciting time for the space sector, and particularly satellite applications. I mean, the reduction in the size of satellites, potentially the cost, the way they're produced, these will all enable the transformation in the way applications can be developed. So we produce market intelligence on a monthly basis, and our latest forecast predict that 1,300 satellites are going to require a launch over the next 3 years. These are orders of magnitude of change in terms of the way the sector's operating. There's a fairly old chart here, but it starts to show from an Earth observation perspective that if you're launching all these different satellites, how you can start to move towards the top right-hand corner in terms of having revisit even hourly, and the resolution moving towards less than a metre. So you can start to produce some extremely exciting applications. And the same sort of thesis applies in communications. And it's all about the application. So you're starting to see new ideas from things like carbon monitoring, ideas in the financial services, how we help agriculture, how we help out in health, and all sorts of different connectivity ideas. And that's really what we've been set up to try and support the sector to try and achieve in helping the UK to grasp a significant market share in these new and very, very exciting areas. So our focus as the Catapult is on two main things, and really it talks to the story that satellites really underpin this new data economy, this new digital age that the government is driving very, very hard towards. I mean, those of you that are aware of things like the industrial strategy, some of the grand challenges, well, the sort of data and AI grand challenges is very much aligned to what satellites can do, because frankly, if you want to have your data where you want it, when you want it, then connectivity everywhere, ubiquitous connectivity is key, and satellites are an important part of that. Some of the market research shows that mobile data traffic is going to increase 200-fold over the next 20 years. Most of that's probably going to be down to connected vehicles, and 10% of that's going to be taken by satellites. So you can start to see the real need for satellite both in remote areas and actually in urban areas as backup, as resilience, as redundancy. And then geospatial intelligence. So how can we use these petabytes of Earth observation data that are now being produced by all the satellites that I alluded to earlier to help us manage our planet, manage our businesses, manage our own lives in the ways that we're going to need to do differently for the 21st century. I mean, things are changing so quickly, politically, economically, ecologically, financially. The way we use this intelligence to help us manage our world is fundamental and is opening all sorts of opportunities up for satellite data. So I'm just going to talk a little bit now about some of the sort of trends we're seeing and why they might be relevant. So firstly, from the sort of Earth observation or geospatial side of things, one of the big areas has really been around computer vision and scale. So with everything moving into the cloud, the fact that you've now got machine learning and artificial intelligence that can, to some extent, start to take some of the load away from the human in the loop in terms of assessing, identifying the intelligence, the information within the images that are coming down. That's been a massive trend, and one that's seeing all sorts of new businesses created that are raising quite significant amounts of private finance. So again, creating opportunities for jobs, creating opportunities for the sorts of graduates that you are supporting. Because of this new finance that's coming into the sector, then we're seeing new opportunities. Looking at it's often with everything satellites about combining it with other data sets. So the combination with UAVs is an important trend, and then we're driving towards lots and lots of different data sets again to help us manage our planet, manage ourselves in new and better ways. So hyperspectral imagery, multispectral imagery, synthetic aperture radar. These sorts of data sets being combined together, throw in a bit of machine learning, throw in a bit of artificial intelligence, new ways of doing things, and we really are starting to see some magic new applications created. This is an example of some work we did with Citigroup, looking at the progression of a solar farm. They're very interested in the use of materials, and for some of the financial projections that they use, that are used by their analysts. So again, the more you can get this imagery readily available regularly, the more you can start to do. I'm obviously going to hear from Owen later, but I mean the ultimate trend for that is towards real-time video, and I mean open your minds to just what might be possible there. From the connectivity perspective, then really it's the story of hybridization. It's the story of linking satellite, linking terrestrial to give us the connectivity we need when we want it. And 5G and beyond 5G standards are a big part of that as we look to link those two elements together to give us what we need. Everything from resilience services, where satellites are going to be core, as I mentioned, in things like connected vehicles, the way UAVs operate, in IoT, where you're looking at new ways of perhaps managing agriculture or monitoring transport infrastructure, consumer services like education and health, and professional services, again, we've done quite a lot with the emergency services, with ambulances, and remote diagnostics, because these are areas where there's a real urgent need. These are users that are already showing hundreds of millions of pounds of benefit just from integrating satellite into the way they operate their services. Haven't mentioned too much about positioning, but obviously a key element as well. Obviously aware, all of you, with the the high profile of Galileo at the moment, but again, the positioning data and plenty of innovation there as we move to accuracies less than 10 centimetres, and we look to create ways to move seamlessly between the indoor and the outdoor. So it's a really, really exciting time for creating new applications and for the sorts of students and graduates that you're working with. It really is all about the application. So I've just got one example here of some of the work we've done in agriculture. So initially, these white dots there you can see in the field, those are cows. You track the cows, and you can start to see based on the heat map where they go, where the good grasses were, and hence where they're getting the most the best inputs to produce the best milk. So that's an example of connectivity and positioning. Then obviously you've got the observation element, so how we can use multispectral, hyperspectral imagery to start and SAR to actually start to look at things like crop growth, predicting yields, and making sure the crops are optimized in terms of where pesticides and things are sprayed, which again shows this is again using positioning data to make sure that the fields are given the right nutrients, the right things at the right time to again produce the right yields and the best yields for this for our planet, where we're going to need to feed more and more people. As I've got a few minutes, I'll carry on, and if I may, yeah, get a couple of minutes. So the areas that we focus on as a Catapult, I talked a bit about transport, connected vehicles. Sustainable living is huge in terms of the challenges. The blue economy obviously has some great needs from a satellite perspective. They don't have many alternatives. And then government, where we focus a lot on health and them as an early adopter from a connectivity perspective. The other angle from the markets, we focused a lot on building market demand, but is the technology side of things. I've talked about connectivity and geospatial, but we also enable the next generation of satellite constellations and do a fair bit with robotics and autonomous systems, both UAVs, terrestrially, and then actually starting to do looking at things like in-space manufacture and in-orbit servicing. From the advanced satellite constellations perspective, I'd just like to finish with one opportunity that may be relevant to you and or your students, and that's our in-orbit demonstration program. So if there's a good idea for a new service, then this is an opportunity that we can leverage to support good ideas to be put into space and services trials. So there are two missions open for a 3U platform, and we've got a 6U platform opportunity with Open Cosmos, which has a deadline in September. So again, do communicate that to your students. Hopefully it's of interest. I say fantastic that this has been convened here, and a really, really warm welcome to Harwell. I think the focus on downstream applications today is very, very pertinent to the future of the space industry and to delivering the sorts of students and expertise that we're all going to need. As a Catapult, delighted to be here and to be able to support, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you.